until everyone said they were ready. Sorry.
Okay, now we will call the business meeting to order. We've already done the pledge to the flag and the roll call. Councilman Coleman has joined us. Acceptance of the agenda. Town board accepts the agenda as prepared by the town supervisor. Two last minute additions that came yesterday and today. One is the Board of Elections agreement that is time sensitive, and one is a discussion, or not discussion, a resolution for a new job description. So could I have that motion with those two additions?
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Supervisor's financial report. It has been a really busy week, so I do not have the financial report to present to the clerk or you. I will have that before next week. I'll get it to you in your email. I do have the numbers to report though. The revenue for August for general fund, $237,807.26. It's so high because we got our quarterly sales tax payment from the county. And we also, because the sales tax was at the level that it was last year, thanks to Supervisor Quigley's involvement in the contract, we got an extra 1%. There is a number, what they call a circuit breaker number. If the amount of sales tax received exceeds that much, both the county and the city of Kingston have agreed to give the supervisors an additional 1% to share proportionally. So what it does is it gives us a 25% greater payment than we would have gotten previously. Both of those payments showed up in the same, actually in the same envelope. So we had a nice August. The highway fund had $5,063.46. Expenditures, general fund, $85,780.25. Highway fund, $154,776.16. Capital fund is $0. Street lighting fund, $407.39. Ambulance fund, $43,750. Escrow fund, $4,465.96. The total expenditures for August, the general fund, $200,423.93. Highway fund, $221,534.06. Capital fund is $0. Street lighting fund, $407.39. Ambulance fund, $43,750, and escrow fund, $4,465.96. Did any of those?
Nope.
You're good. Correspondence report. We did receive one correspondence from Little Ones Learning Center, thanking us for our assistance with their upcoming truck day event. We are providing a constable to assist them because they use the bus garage for parking. The event takes place in the parking lot at the church. They, in the past, have done the crossing with cones, and we offered to allow our constables to assist in that process. So we will be providing a constable for them for that event.
And a truck.
We also do a truck, and I did say to the constable, if we have another constable who wants to bring the other car over and we can have a constable car. I don't know if we have two available. We definitely have one available. So happy to be assistance with them. But I had one additional part because I am not very organized here tonight, and I will probably, as we're going through the paperwork, I will find it and say, oh, here it is. It's not jumping out. Update the O&W Rail Trail project. I don't know if anybody's walked the trail recently. It is the drainage along the sides is amazing. They have widened the rail bed. It is a very nice, smooth surface, and will be prepared to get the final surface on it. They extended the parking area from the 4 spots to the 8 spots, put a nice new wooden low railing there along it. The highway department, sometime in the next few weeks, pending Marbletown's availability, we're going to pave that parking area. Once it's paved, I will have it striped as well, so we can, because now there will be an area where somebody could pull in and totally block the access to the rail trails. We will stripe that with crosshatch and then make 8 spots there. Should be done by, there's originally was November, but at the rate they're going, it could actually be done by some point in October. They have moved their effort a little bit more to the Warsing portion of it now, and they will be redoing the bridges. For people who have asked, a number of people, the rail trail remains open during this process. The only thing we ask is, obviously, if you come across where they're working, to avoid the workers. When they do have to close the trail, they have a trail close sign that they put by the entrance to let people know. So as long as you don't see that sign, trail remains open. After hours, they work from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. After hours and on weekends, the trail remains open. Just know that at some point, though, the bridge surfaces will be going away and there will be a large ravine. So unless people can really jump, there is going to be a.
Right, no moves.
So the New York Rising project, we finally are working toward resolving the water filtration issue. I've gotten quotes from vendors, have supplied them to the state. The state will then decide if there's enough funding left for them. They have resolved the siren issue. The controls were no longer usable, and but the siren was so old that finding the controls was a problem. Marbletown, and I don't know that it was the Marbletown Fire District, but one of the districts of the 7 in Marbletown, one of the ones that disbanded, the town of Marbletown was going to surplus the siren and gave it to the fire district for their project. And they also gave a radio base station. We just lose internet?
No,
Lost camera.
Oh, it says video clip. The video is like clicked up on the bottom settings.
weird.
That was weird.
Yeah,
Gross.
and it moved.
Yeah, maybe a little quick power outage or something.
Oh, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's probably what it was, but.
So you don't.
You're close.
The Ulster County ARPA park funding, oh, thank you. No, Boys Mill Bridge, nothing new to report on that. We just continue with design. And the engineers are working with their consultants on dealing with, I'm guessing probably with right-of-way concerns, both temporary and permanent, because they will, the bridge that we likely are ending up going with will be a precast bridge that they will crane into place. There will have to be a temporary right-of-way established with one of the neighboring properties to be able to put that crane where it can swing the bridge into place. And I still am gonna go watch this. They are gonna have to back the trailer up from Sampsonville to the bridge, but they are insistent that it's no issue. I'm sure the truck driver that's doing it has done it 100 times. So.
Did we talk to them about a standpipe? Make sure they put a standpipe there.
I don't remember. don't think we've gotten to that level yet.
Yeah.
Of that discussion. We're still trying to get what style bridge and so. ARPA park funding, we are still awaiting the county to provide a contract to us for the 100,000. I did confirm we're able to start expending the match portion though. So we have ordered a new sign for the park. Our sign guy, Howie Slotnick from, I think it's Slotnick Signs is his actual company name, in Esopus, is making the sign for us, and Kate and I worked with him on it. It's turning out great. In the resolutions tonight, you will see I'm asking for a resolution to initiate the court process for the pavilion roof, so we can get that done before the fall. And as soon as we get the contract, we'll move forward on the other parts. And some really, really exciting news. The county has secured funding for housing. They have dedicated a large amount of money toward housing concerns, one of which is through the planning department, where they are working with various municipalities who have joined the Housing Smart Community. I want to get the name right. We were one of the original, I think we were the third one to join. We were kind of already ahead because we already had formed our committee. We applied for funding and we have been awarded funding. The county is funding it directly. So, but Charlotte and I took part in a review of a request for proposals of consultants. There were two that applied for our particular project. We scored them, and I can't divulge the name because they have not released it yet to the two companies. So, but I will say either company would have been great. Their proposals were so close together that we were just a few points apart. But this will fund a study that will work with our housing committee, work with this board. They will look through our zoning code and look to our properties and identify potential sites for new housing. They will then work directly with the owners of those properties, and even more, they will then seek out developers. And the company even offered, and I believe the county is, if they can fund it, they will, for another small amount of money, will create the design for essentially a model template design for the building. So out of this, we will, their goal is to identify one property, but in the research of all the properties, we will gain information about other properties so that we can then utilize on our own. So, and this is 100% funded through the county. No funding from us at all. Exciting, very exciting. And did tell them that we're working on our zoning, and it's going to be about a year process. They had originally scheduled to start in October or November. Given that we probably will not have our zoning code till December, but they may still start the process. There will be community meetings to meet with the residents to help with the process. It's anything else you want to add that I'm forgetting?
No, I think you got most of it. Yeah, they're gonna work with it. If there's a developer or someone who wants to work with it, they'll help them through the zoning portion of it and doing their zoning applications. And seeker things that someone might not understand if it's a smaller housing development, like someone is doing a lot with like a multi-family dwelling or something like that. But it's really a great opportunity for us. At the end of it, we're gonna have an entire list of throughout the entire township of potential housing sites, and that includes them looking for water, looking for valley ground, everything like that. So it'll be sites that are ready to just pair up with a developer to actually develop the land to make a housing site.
It's almost like having a generic environmental impact statement. They hand a developer and say, this property is ready to go. just
Buy it and.
buy it and
permits.
insert your project.
Are they gonna look at any adaptive reuse in town?
They're gonna look at all properties, this isn't just for vacant land, this is for all properties, so they will identify. And I didn't say it before, both of the vendors who applied, both had a very extensive background of doing this already in other communities to great success. So this is not a new invention for them. Both had at least 4 or 5 examples of other communities that they have done these projects with. Were sometimes paid for directly by the communities, sometimes paid for by other counties. But this is all a new initiative. The county executive has stressed housing and the county legislature is following suit. And this is funding that is being made available to assist communities. So yet another grant for the town of Rochester. I think that's now, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 going on at the same time. Yeah, so exciting. Transfer station permits. This is on here to just sort of make a public statement. We've had a lot of people who come to the transfer station with no permit. They say, "Oh, I forgot it," or "Oh, so we are having a new sign made up. Once the sign has arrived and will be placed on the outside of the shack there, we will be enforcing, you must either have your permit on your vehicle or in your possession, or you must buy a day pass. We've sort of been using the honor system. Quite frankly, I think some people are not being honest. So we are going to, with a no exceptions policy. So we will be enforcing that. We're waiting until the sign comes because I don't want to put it on our employees there until we have that backup. For the board members, it will say by order of the town board, just so you know. But it is an 18 by 24 sign that can't be missed, and it will be right there. And our numbers are way down this year in number of permits and also in revenue. I think this is part of the reason. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but I think as COVID has relaxed, we're not getting quite as much garbage in general, because other communities are seeing the same thing, but the number of permits is down considerably, which is.
I have a question for you. Is this already our policy and we're just not enforcing it now?
Correct.
Okay, good. Then you don't need us. Just wanted to make sure.
No, you must have a permit to use the transfer station. That is part of our policy.
Mhm.
We have just been allowing people
Yeah.
to not have it in their
So
possession. So now it is a sort of an amendment to the policy,
well,
but
then why
it's
don't
saying,
you just vote on that amendment?
Okay.
So,
let me wait till I get the resolution.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. I did think about that. 2024 budget, I am in process. I have gotten budget requests out to almost every department. There are still 2 departments I have to get the budget request out to. You got yours, right?
Yep.
Thank you. I wanted to recognize one of our highway workers, Wayne Gray, who retired from service August 31st. You know how many years he worked for the town? And I should have 14. So 14 years. We wish him a happy retirement. And I also want to take a second to recognize a very valued resident of the community, Jack Schoonmaker, who celebrated his 90th birthday recently with a very well-attended celebration at Saunderskill. Unfortunately, I was unable to be there that afternoon. We didn't get a chance to make it, but I'm sure if anybody wants to send a belated birthday card, old Jack loves to get mail and cards. And by his own admit, there's a great article in the Bluestone about him, this last edition that came out Friday. Just a very, very, to me, a very important resident personally, and I think to the whole town. The man has seen it all and done it all, and still wants to keep doing it. So it's great. I just wanted to recognize that. I have one official designation to make. Councilman Paddock has been our Justice Court liaison for quite some time. His work schedule sometimes takes him away more than he would like. And because of that, I'm going to swap appointments and ask the Councilwoman Nowen to take on the Justice Court liaison. There have been some meetings going on over there, and necessity of being involved. Councilman Paddock will continue with his other liaison duties, which he does very well. And thank you both for agreeing to swap on that. So, and that's all I have for supervisor's update. Mary Lou, any report?
Well, we'll talk about it a little bit later with Mike and I have been working hard. And I had our first conference with the judge and the attorneys on this next case from MTG 441 LLC, which sounds like a formula to me. And seeing as we have an executive session scheduled for later and it's litigation, I'll talk to you about it then.
Okay.
Nothing like was.
Okay. Kate, Town Clerk Tax Court.
For the month of August, $44,703.76 was collected. As far as resignations, we received a resignation from Chad Cooper in the Highway Department. And I wanted to also congratulate Wayne Gray on his retirement from the Highway Department as well.
Okay, and I put in a special Heritage Day report, so please.
Yeah, so we are 1 month away from Heritage Day as of today. We have live music with 4 bands playing throughout the day, delicious food, the Jenny Bell Pie Contest. We have Historic Preservation Awards, fireworks, and much more. Friends of Historic Rochester are still looking for a variety of vendors, crafting tradesmen, master crafters, maybe is the best way to say that. We have a car show that has registration the day of the event, and we are looking for local artists to submit artwork for an art show. The artwork must show in some way represent heritage of the town. If you have any other questions, you can check out our website at www.friendsofrochester.org.
Great. Thank you very much. And I'm hoping this year the supervisor's gonna add our pie in the pie. Last year I ran out of time, but I'm hoping. Highway Superintendent report. Superintendent Fry was unable to be here tonight. He informed me that the only reporting he had to do is what we somewhat already reported, that the Highway Department will be paving the parking area. We thank the Highway Department for their assistance on that project. And I believe they have finished all the road work for the season. They did some earlier last week. They did some chip seal work. I believe they are completed now with all the work that was scheduled on highways for the summer. I'm sure they're starting to gear up toward winter time, which is, I know it's hard to believe with it 90 degrees out today, but sooner rather than later, that will be coming. Liaison reports. Adam, I'll start with you. I haven't started with you in a while.
From our constabulary, they answered 21 direct calls for service and other duties in August, included 17 neighbor-to-neighbor and quality of life complaints, 4 resident traffic complaints, Granite Road, Lower Whitfield Road, Sampsonville Road, and Clay Hill Road, 2 environmental complaints, Towpath Road and Cherrytown Road, 9 new building department violations, 3 new court cases were open, 8 proceedings remain open, and 0 proceedings were closed. Interesting occurrences of August. This was yet another busy summer month. Traffic complaints from local residents, mostly speeding and ignoring the posted stop and yield signs, as well as parking on many town roads, have increased again. Garbage dumping of household trash and other debris on town roads is still an ongoing issue. Short-term rental properties continue to generate many complaints, especially on holidays, Fridays, and weekends. Neighbor-to-neighbor complaints have again increased this month, with noise complaints being the most common. They've all been diffused without further action necessary. Our very own Rich Miller. We'll talk about the rec department. Ashley reports the town of Rochester Recreation Department is looking forward to start the 2023-2024 after-school program. It'll begin Monday, September 18th. There's still spots available. Please call the rec department for more information at 845-626-2115. There'll be an adult paint class Friday, September 22nd at 10 a.m. Also call to sign up. The class is free, but space is very limited, also very popular. Heritage Day is quickly approaching, and we're looking for bakers to enter the annual pie contest. Information can be found on the rec department's Facebook page or calling the rec department. Cash prize is awarded to the winners. And then finally, calling all painters, photographers, and visual artists. The Senior Youth Recreation Commission is looking for local artists to display the town at Heritage Day, specifically pieces related to heritage in some way. Contact Deborah Martin to get involved. Contact information can be found on the Facebook page as well. So that's what I got.
Okay, and I just want to take a second to thank our recreation department, specifically Ashley and Bethany, but our whole summer staff. They finished up a really great summer season. Went to an amazing number of places. They 3 days a week for 6 weeks. They went on field trips, and the list was incredible. Ashley does a really good job of finding other funding sources and donations so they can go to places that are maybe a little more expensive. You'll see tonight we have a grant from the Rondo Valley Better Education Foundation, which paid for 2 of those trips to museums because of the educational aspect. So the diversity of what they do is just amazing. And every other town supervisor I know looks at our program and says, how do you guys do it? It's really is amazing. Thank you. Erin?
Sure. One of my reports is in my email and I can't reach that email.
You want me to
So,
move on?
no, I'm just saying
Okay.
that's one of mine. So, if it doesn't ping, then I won't have a code enforcement
Okay.
report for you guys. So for the ECC, they have a third Thursday this month that is on permaculture. And so that's the third Thursday of the month. That's a Zoom meeting, and that'll be with Andrew Faust talking about permaculture. They got back to Chair Messerschmidt got back to us about our request for native species list for recommendations. He suggested that instead of doing that, which would be like these super long lists, we should just really identify what invasive species are and tell people to like offer that they should focus on natives and then say what invasive species should not be planted. So, because he said invasive list is much shorter. He also raised this issue, which I was thinking we should maybe send to highway department and county about this invasive tree that when it gets trimmed, it like explodes. And then it's like a host plant for the spotted lanternfly. So he said it's just like this issue that's happening in municipalities because of the way they're getting cut. So I was going to forward that on. They also, they had requested funds to have something at Heritage Day and weren't sure whether or not we were going to do a budget modification.
You know, thank you for that. I forgot that resolution. Well, we'll add it.
Okay.
Why don't you add that to our discussion items when we
Okay.
get there? Thank you for that. I forgot about that.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you needed to, if they had the budget or
No,
not.
no, he had emailed me and I said I would discuss it with the board and I forgot to put it in the.
Okay,
agenda,
great.
So we'll do it in our discussion.
Great, and then also they're continuing to do the plastic collections at the transfer station the first Saturday of each month at 11:30 a.m. And just like a note for the public, now that it's more popular, members of the public are leaving bags of plastic and garbage where the pickup is happening while there's no volunteers there. So then when the volunteers get there, there's like these bags of garbage and plastic that's obviously very stressful. So we are hoping to address that with some signage, but also just for any members of the public watching, please do not leave any bags at the transfer station when it's not the first Saturday of the month and an ECC volunteer is posting the drop off. For agriculture, I've created a doodle poll that I need to send out and see if we can get the first meeting scheduled. So I will be doing that within the next day. Website, I'm 2.5 weeks behind on what I said I was gonna do, but this weekend, I'm gonna buckle down and finish the preliminary content for the website and create a draft action plan for how we can finish getting the website full of content. I have the report from the code enforcement office. So like I said, I can't access my email right now. One thing I'll say is that Alyssa proposed some fee updates for the board to consider when we're looking at fees. So I wanted to present that.
Tell her to send that with a budget.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I thought we should consider that during the budget process. And we also, so there's that, and then
You guys want a hotspot?
I have a hotspot. It's the web.
Wi-Fi,
It's
it's just off.
it's the
Oh,
server. Yeah, it's not. I turned my hotspot on too, just in case. And then for the planning board, I have a report from Chair Grosso. The larger projects are moving swimmingly as they have made great progress in long-term projects. They continue to get lot line improvements and small subdivisions that are going well. Larger projects continue to make application, but are pending moratorium expiration. We are excited about the appointment of our vacant planning board member position that we have had vacant for far too long and hope the town board makes a great appointment. So that's from planning board.
Great.
And I think I have a couple other things, but that I'm a liaison to, but that's it for now.
All
All
right.
right, me. So the elder care program, we had 2 new signups in the last month, which is great. Otherwise, it's kind of the more quiet season for them once it gets into winter and ice and snow falls with people needing emergency medication deliveries or things will be a little busier for that program. The housing committee did not meet last month, and apologies to the public and anyone who wanted to show up to that meeting. There was a scheduling conflict, moving the meeting, and then I did not get a cancellation notice up on the website to get up on the website for that. So that meeting did not happen. But I do want to report just for housing in general, RUPCO's ADU grants that are going on. The deadline for applications is September 22nd at 4 p.m. And in order to apply for that money towards building an ADU on your property, you have to be in total household income has to be at or below 100% of the Ulster County median income. And you can contact RUPCO for more details, but I just wanted to give a public reminder that that deadline is the 22nd of this month. So if anyone was interested in applying, that will be coming to a close soon for their funding cycle. And that is what I got.
To add to that, last night at the county planning board meeting, Dennis Doyle talked about that program, and he's seen some of the submittals, some of the designs, and he said some people are being really, really, really creative in their ways of doing ADUs, and he was very impressed with the creativity that people are coming up with. So,
Yeah, I think there's 3 different designs that were already pre-approved for ADUs for that, so that you kind of, if you are awarded one of the grants, you can just already have the architectural plans ready to go and apply at your side for your building permit right away. It's a really good program. If anyone wants to take advantage of it, make sure you apply.
I forgot one thing, which is for ECC. that they had a presentation on the Community Preservation Fund at their last meeting. And we'll be having a follow-up to that at this month's meeting, which is the last Tuesday of the month here at 6 p.m. If anyone's interested in that, but they will be recommending that the town board pursue. I asked for if they wanted to make that an official
Okay.
request, but that's just something that will be worth maybe looking into for town board members.
Okay.
Sorry,
No
that
problem.
was at the top of my.
And Charlotte, your housing is meeting the third Wednesday?
Third Wednesday,
At
yes.
6 or 6:30?
6 o'clock, they meet here at the community center. And that is held, I told them no more changing dates. They're trying to change the week because the community center is a very popular place. So,
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Okay, I'm gonna wing it. So I don't have any notes. So Spectrum, I know is on the agenda for later. We'll talk about that. Our letters were noticed by Spectrum. So they're eager to talk to us again about that. Get into the details. Also, March Gallagher sent us a note. She received a letter and said it spurred the county to look into some of the quotes that people have been getting from Spectrum. So there's a website that we publish on our website, so people can go there and submit quotes that they've received, background on that. So good to see that there's some movement there, and I guess we can talk later about respond to Spectrum's request. ZBA, so they had a busy meeting this past month. I think they had 4 individual applications. There were 2, there was a fence and the garage, that both of which I think were scheduled for public hearing on the 21st of September. Then there was a pre-meeting for a possible subdivision that would result in some non-conforming lots. So I think they were just providing some background to that applicant about what the process would look like. And then there was a 4th that was a discussion about some questions about parking and trailers on parcels. And I think the takeaway from that was they were going to get some more information about what specifically the concerns were that the building department had related to that. See where that goes. In terms of the EMS and fire district, I spoke to Commissioner Dunning last night. He said all is well with fire district. They did take delivery of one of the vehicles they were waiting on for company 2. So that's I think it was a water truck that they had been waiting on. So that is obviously good news because it puts a source of water closer to some of those residences up there. Have we formally requested the budget numbers? I know it's part of the contract with EMS. Have we requested that they provide us that? Or
I've had conversation with Dave Boland, and he is working with both agencies.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so I spoke to Joe Vitti from Marveltown First Aid Unit. I know that they're working on it. I was corresponding with Dave earlier this week, so he may go and meet with KFAS and see if they need any additional help with that. I also think Warsing might have their AID on their agenda
Actually,
tonight.
Supervisor Howe texted me just a moment ago and said they just adopted
Okay.
ambulance district in Worcester. So
Yeah. So that's good news as well.
yes, they did.
Yeah, that's good news in terms of support. Oh, that's perfect. Done.
That signals the end of his report.
Fire
You
district,
planned
yeah, I
You
actually
planned it
spoke to
to
them
do.
about that in case I was flailing.
Also, Michael, the fire company is holding a service Sunday, 9/11 at 6 p.m.
They do a very nice job. Is that it, Michael?
Yes.
Couple quick things. I did find the other announcement that I had. Correspondence. This is from the county planning department. There is an agriculture and farmland protection plan that the county is working on. There is a survey that people can sign on up to, primarily for people involved in agriculture. To answer whatever the survey is. I have not looked at it, but I did get this to Erin by
Yeah.
email and asked her to circulate it to her vast email list, but
It's a 15-minute survey.
called attention to public. And Kate, I don't know, maybe we can, if you could maybe send that to put on the website. Probably should have gotten it up there sooner, but knew I had something else to.
Put it down at liaison reports. So I just wanted to-
You, I went to HPC, but I wanted to piggyback off something you said, oh, Spectrum. I talked with March Gallagher today. They are doing in Shandaken, which is very seriously lacking broadband coverage. A community meeting where people can come and basically tell their issues and stories and the cost of what's projected. She offered to us to do one or Warsing. I said, why don't we work together? And so she is trying to secure the Kerhonkson Firehouse, which is where we often have meetings that sort of do both communities. And I don't have a date yet, but sometime in the first 2 weeks of October, she would like to do similar to what they're doing in Shandaken in our area, to be able to hear people's stories. And she's made it her mission to get this broadband and cable to people. So,
Great.
so as soon as I get a date, we'll get that out.
I just didn't know if you had moved on.
Nope.
HPC, the second series of Hamlet Talks will take place this Sunday. The Catawba Hamlet series will be located at the courthouse in Sampsonville Road, and it'll go from 1 to 4. They have approximately 12 guest speakers coming, and it depends on who you ask. I'm just putting in 4. And all are welcome, and the HPC is just finalizing their preservation awards for Heritage Day.
Yeah, I want piggybacking off that, I want to thank the county who are allowing us to close Sampsonville Road from Vandemark Lane to Clay Hill, very short distance, but because the courthouse can only hold 28 or 30 people at a time under the occupancy numbers, they are going to probably be moving out into the parking lot for this event. And we were concerned with parking and people, so we contacted the county. The county was happy to oblige as long as we gave a certificate of insurance. Constables and the fire police are going to assist with the directing of traffic. Superintendent Fry is providing some signage. Again, as always, thank you to Vinnie Nigro for allowing us to use his sound system. Every event we need something, he's right there. And so I think we have, hopefully it will be a very good event. I will be away and unable to attend, but I hope it's a great event.
Speaking of Sampsonville Road, for anybody who might be watching, who is planning to go out and about, that call was to Sampsonville Road and Pepper Tree Lane, where a tree and wires. So find a different route. They're up to the minute reporting.
Look at that.
Live from the sky.
Okay.
And maybe some other tree.
No other, well, assessors, I did not get an official report from our assessor. I will say they have been very, very busy this week. Because school tax bills, oh, they sent to you. Perfect. Never mind then. So Joanne and Jeremy are continuing to organize the office so they can work more effectively and efficiently. According to Institute of Assessing Officers guidelines, they have done a lot of rearranging of furniture, much more efficient, effective, set it up. Property inspections, he is doing property inspections as time permits and at property owners' request. They continue to work on processing sales, entering building permits and certificates of completion. They're pulling plans from the building department, they're answering calls, a lot of calls because school tax bills went out this week and everybody calls the town about their school tax bills. Issuing 911 addresses, assisting property owners with their questions and issues.
About the cameras.
Yeah.
Well,
The
it's going
generator.
on right now. Did say that on.
They're dealing, assisting public who are walking in looking for deeds, tax maps, and owner information. The assessor will be taking a couple of vacation days coming up, which he has definitely earned. We received 2 SCR applications from Aventine Properties. And they have hearings on 9/25 and 9/26, just for the public and for myself. What's the SCAR mean?
Small.
Small claims
Yeah.
assessment, something?
Something.
Okay,
It's something that's handled by the assessors.
yeah. Basically, it's somebody who didn't like the results of
On a residential.
on a residential
So,
assessment
yeah, it all
of
goes
grievance,
into
so they can go to this SCR process.
that.
And they have received one certiorari, am I saying it right? Case that the town attorney is handling.
Certiorari.
Certiorari, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. So,
Small claims assessment.
makes
SCAR.
sense. I figured the A was assessment. So that brings us up to public comment. Mr. DeWitt, good to see you, sir.
Obliged to say something. It's a terrible time to praise you on the great work you're
Thank you for
doing.
joining us.
No one to cheer or oppose or whatever, but on the topic, I don't know if you keep track of how many people show up at the meeting, but it might be worth doing. I'm kind of concerned because COVID was a good reason, excuse for the attendance to come down, but we also realized that when there were certain topics on the agenda, people turned out anyway. And I'm a little concerned. I think maybe the lowered attendance when I've been here anyway is because there aren't as many angry controversies. It may also be that the film and whatnot, but you can keep track of the numbers for that too. I think it'd be worth keeping an eye on anyway. And as a person who comes here more often than most people, a lot of you are hard to hear. You're kind of appropriately, especially in the small audiences, directing your conversations to one another. But that's not good. That's really not okay. And I know you had in plan to get some sort of a speaker system, and it seems unnecessary when I'm the only one here, but it's also going to prevent some people from coming because there are a few of you who are just very difficult to hear and who want to hear everything you've got to say. That's why we're calling. And I think there may be other things. I mean, I'm jokingly sitting here thinking about it. I was thinking you just put on the agenda, town supervisor's salary and guarantee a good turnout for every meeting. But we don't want to do it that way. But there may be some things that could be done to make this more friendly. I mean, it was a nice community thing, and I would hate for it to go that way. Yeah. Also on the community preservation plan that Aaron mentioned, that's something I was going to bring to you all separately, individually, along with my access to the Rondout stream for paddles as sort of a pet item. I think, and I know I've heard, I know you're doing a lot of other things as well. This is a big deal. It's a lot of money. It's been done by Gardner, Newpaltz, Marbletown. The number, I did a little bit of looking at it. It has to be raised as a vote issue, an issue for the voters to approve. And I think there are different ways it can be done, but basically the batting average of approval has been something around 95, 98%. I think it's been controversial at first, but not at second. And it's been approved a lot. It's a nice source of money. I'm in favor of taxing wealthier people like me with fancier houses. I think that's a good thing to do. And I hope you look at it and put it seriously on your agenda somewhere in here along with the thousands of other things you're doing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Board member time, Larry, actually, I'm not gonna take up the time tonight, but I would love to, because obviously you've really done your homework on it, so let you and I sit down and talk some time about it. Preservation Fund, because I've done some background on it, but I don't know at the detail that you do, so.
Can I just add a footnote on the river access?
Sure.
It'll be less than a minute. I haven't gotten that many responses. So I've had my main concern with what DEC was gonna say we had to do to build or to rebuild or make better an existing site or create a new one where there was room to do it. And a pretty thorough conversation with with the main guy in our region for it, who's also a town resident, felt an effective response. But it's entirely possible that we could fix a couple of the local sites by using our highway department with truckloads of gravel, which is more or less what's been done. I've been over on the Walltail paddling over there recently and seeing what they've done over there, a much better job than we have on the rundown. And it's possible that something like that would work. And what you have to do is submit a concept to their permitting people, whose name and numbers I have, and then they will tell you whether you can do what you want to do. So I will be coming forward sometime in the next 3 months, hopefully before it gets too cold to paddle, and see if you all would agree to submitting a plan to DEC for a do-it-ourselves upgrade of the Burn Road, Burn Road access point, Burn semi-access point. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. One thing I forgot to mention on, Kate, I didn't tell you this either. September 27th, from 10:30 to 11:30, Congressman Ryan, he has his community support team. It's called the CARES Van. They will be located here in the parking lot here, because I believe the community center is being used at that time, but they set up a little canopy. So I went to one in Rosendale, and I will say they solved my IRS problem from 6 years ago with a couple phone calls. Still haven't seen the money that they owe me, but hopefully soon. But anyway, very helpful, and they're making rounds throughout his district. And so September 27th, and they just sent me a press release today, Kate, which I'll email to you and we can get it out to help advertise this. It is only for an hour, then they're leaving here and going to Marbletown. So if you miss them, you can probably follow them up the road.
All of them
That's
around the
yeah.
county.
Yeah. Any other responses to Mr. DeWitt? Okay, then moving on. The granary project. Ren and Allen, you stuck it out. Good for you. What we would like to do tonight is the part 2 that we did a draft of on August 10th. We will go through that. Here for you guys. Don't need one? Oh, I have it. You don't need one?
No, I don't have it.
And then we also received confirmation of the lessening of the traffic counts based on the changes in the program that I had asked them to do. I emailed that to everybody today. I did not print that out. I did at 4:15 this afternoon, though, get a response about some questions about the current state of the housing buildings over there that I wanted to share with you guys. So,
I was not there.
okay.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So,
If you made one for me,
Yeah.
thank you.
so what our plan is tonight is Mary Lou and I've been working based on this and based on all the 2.5 years of 2 years of information we received. boiling it all down to do a part 3. We have kind of a draft on paper, but what we realized is as we went through this, we sort of decided what box to check, but we never really discussed why we were checking the box. And that's an important part of part
Or
3.
look at the-
Because the part 3 has to say essentially why we checked the boxes we did. So what I would like to do tonight is sort of go through each one. I'm not going to read it word for word, but I will tell you sort of the bullet point version of what we've come up with. You guys can tell us if you agree, disagree, if you think we forgot something, if we're saying something that isn't right. So that's kind of my plan here tonight. Don't think it will take us too long, but Mary Lou and I have to have that information to be able to finish the part 3, which I hope to email to all of you on Tuesday of next week. So you have a couple days to look through it, and then we will discuss and vote on that part 3 for either a negative declaration or a positive declaration next Thursday.
And I
night.
think the reason we're doing this is a lot of these things we know in our minds, like a lot of the things that we said, we're just answering no because it doesn't apply. We read it, we know it doesn't apply, but we didn't say it to have it on the record. And whatever you do decide for your part 3, if either side were to challenge that, we want to make sure we actually verbally discussed it.
Can I just ask a question? You got the confirmed reduced traffic counts, Mike.
Yes.
You were gonna have Nadine comment specifically.
So I followed up and left her a message. She had arrived, if you look at her original report, she had reduced the number on their original count. And ironically, had arrived at this, she did it based on percentages. If you took the percentages of the numbers, they actually matched up exactly to what the new number is. So I will confirm with her by phone, but in her mindset, she reviewed it because she took, the wellness center went away, so that many trips went away. The co-work space was reduced in size, so that many trips went away.
Right,
So-
and she stated it as a percentage of how many trips went away because of that. And then Mike did the calculations
I did the calculations in
to see
my
what
head
the
and
actual number was. And they actually matched when we asked the applicant
Yeah,
what
but
their.
before we actually vote, I will get,
I thought we wanted just to see if, wasn't our question different than that? Wasn't our question like, did we think, we wanted her to comment on,
we wanted to ask if there were any mitigation measures.
yeah,
Yes.
that she
Yes.
thought we needed to take into consideration, given
Right.
the firehouse and all of that.
So we will, now that we have gotten that,
Okay.
those numbers, it's been forwarded to her, but I don't want to hold up the process while we wait for that one piece of information. If something changes between now and next week, I mean, we will get her reply back. We can incorporate that in.
Yeah, as you get new information, you can always amend.
But
So
we
if you decide-
we closed the public hearing. Kind of, we did the draft part 2, we kind of need to adopt part 2. Until we actually do a neg deck or a pos deck, we're never done. So we can change anything at any time. But to just stop everything until we get that one piece of information.
Oh, I'm not asking that we
Okay.
stop. That was something we requested in
Right.
response to public comment, was like if we're not gonna require a traffic study, we wanted to just have a more thorough understanding of traffic impacts. And have Nadine look at specific questions, because we had not asked for.
Yeah.
So for me, like, in terms of the part 3, that seems like a relevant piece of information that we want to include when we receive it.
And that one section on transportation, we can easily rewrite it. But the other parts, like Mary Lou said, the parts where we check no next to the question, what I'm looking for more so tonight is us to have a discussion to say why we check no. We all know why we checked no, but the person, if this does go to court, the judge reading it doesn't know the town of Rochester and isn't gonna go, oh, I know that property. Of course it's a no. So we kind of need to say why it's a no. And I know for the board, some of us have done many seekers and others have not. And especially doing a part 3, it's a 2 and 3, it's complicated. It's not an easy process.
But we've asked that question of her and viewers.
Yes. Yes, which is why I pushed the issue to get, because her reply was, she basically did the percentages, but she couldn't answer the specific question. So I pushed to get that document, that information that was received today. It was forwarded to, she was copied on it. So I will follow up with her to ask her to expedite that reply back to us. So she gave as best a reply as she could without seeing the actual numbers, because she, as an engineer, kind of did the math herself, but she didn't see those numbers. So I apologize. I'm just trying to get to the right spot in. Okay, so we're going to jump around a little bit in order because I'm going to go in the order that it is in the part 3, which is all the no's are first. So the first one we'll be talking about is on page 2. It's the impact on geological features. We said no. What I put in here is simply a restating of the question. It says there are no identified unique or unusual landforms on the site, e.g. cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, and caves, which is exactly what the question is. I'm going to verbally ask, is everybody okay with that being the answer? Nope. Yeah. Did we lose our internet? No,
I think it's just the.
Camera seems to be, maybe that was what happened to the planning board. Anybody have any issues with that?
No.
Okay. The next is impact on surface waters, which is a no. The answer is there are no New York State DEC designated wetlands or federal wetlands situated where development is planned, nor will such areas be affected by the project. There are no streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes situated where development is planned, nor will such areas be affected by the project. So essentially, we're saying there's no surface water near the area. Everybody okay with that? Works for me. Yes. Impact on flooding is next, which is our number 5. We say the project site is not situated within any designated floodway area as delineated by the Flood and Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, on the National Flood Insurance Program map. There are no perennial or intermittent flowing streams present on the developed portions of the site, and site areas to be developed.
Agree.
Okay. Next is impact on air. We go into a little bit of detail about short-term and long-term because obviously during construction, there is the possibility of some dust. Short-term air quality impacts occurring during the construction phase may occur from vegetative clearing, parking improvements, building reconstruction, building rehab, and construction of site appurtenances associated with the site work. The potential impacts will be reduced by employing protective site building practices in order to control the potential for fugitive dust and sediment. I go into examples of what some of those are. I looked up best management practices. They have presented that in some of their documents, in some of the writings. That they would use best management practices. The potential for adverse air quality effects will also be limited by the loam characteristics of the soils and that much of the site is already developed. The project site is comprised of well-drained soils. That's from your soil map, especially in the non-structural areas. And the access to the long-term air quality impacts of the project. There's no potential for adverse impacts from vehicle emissions or as a result of fully built development. There will not be large volumes of idling vehicles introducing pollutants into the air. And other than that, there's really no air impacts from businesses. I didn't, like I said, I didn't read the whole thing. You will get it and get a chance to comment on it, but that's the gist of the paragraph. I don't want to, it's a 48-page document. If I sat and read you every single word of it.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's
Good luck
fine.
in that
I
transition.
do have a question that I do not want you to read the whole thing. But when you are saying in your explanation in type 3, when you're referring to something that the applicant says they're gonna do, does it reference where they say that?
So we normally don't. What I did do, and I worked on until 2 o'clock in the morning last night, there is a printed document that lists every document that we received, the date it was presented, who presented it, and it is a full list of the record. If you went through and referenced in the part 3, the source of every statement made, it would have 140-page document. So is that usually not the case?
Different places
Yeah.
do it different ways.
It's up,
you know?
if you guys want us to do it, we can. We normally do not. We normally, it is in the record. It can be found.
But
We
if
normally
you want
don't
it
cite.
referenced,
Oh, I
okay.
was just curious what,
Yeah.
if I was,
Sometimes if it's a very obscure thing or very detailed, like, numbers or that, but a lot of this too is referenced from the part 1.
part 1.
And,
Yeah.
right, yeah, because it tells you what questions to look at in part 1. And I think that we would put more references in, these are the no's right now we're going through,
Yeah.
that there's no impact. But where we've said there's a moderate to large impact, I think there may be more important.
Yeah, there we
to
may
say,
have more.
Here's why,
references.
here's what we've got in front of
I
us.
was just curious
Yeah.
when I'm reading it.
Yep, understood. Understood. And some of it is sort of paraphrasing because they say best management practices, and we can include examples of best management practices. It's not to say that they're going to do only one, or they might do something different, but it's essentially best management practices, just expanding a little bit on what that means. So next is plants and animals, which is our number 7. And this is also based on the DEC autofill of the part 1 is they checked that there were no endangered plants or animals on that property. So we say that vegetation and wildlife on the existing property are virtually non-existent. Because it's already largely impacted by buildings and structures. When the site is being developed, they will be installing landscaping, which will provide additional vegetation. Then we talk about the absence of animals and wildlife in large numbers in the site. So there will be no habitat loss or wildlife displacement. The existing wooded area, which is only 0.2 acres, will remain substantially non-disturbed. The redevelopment will largely occur on impervious surfaces and are areas which are sparsely vegetated by grass. And the combination of the enhancements to the areas to be developed and the avoidance of the wooded areas renders the construction to be non-significant. It's not a known meeting or migratory habitat for any resident fish or wildlife, and the applicant did submit way back in the beginning, and I actually go back and find it. It was not, I apologize, it was not in that list of documents in your Google Drive. It was so old that it came to us way back in 2021, and I did find it this morning, and it is now up on the Google Drive, which was a threatened and endangered species assessment report for the property, presented by Ecological Solutions. And they identified the Indiana bat and Indiana long-eared bat as federally listed, that had the potential for being on the site. However, the DEC did not have that listed as that site. But the applicant, the natural habitat is, I'm sorry, after, any natural habitat for the bats will not be impacted. That's based on the DEC's report back. The applicant did, and I've got to go back and find where this is, but I think it's in that report. They did voluntarily agree to observe the DEC November 1st through March 31st timeframe for non-cutting of potential trees for the bat, even though they're not required to. And so based on all those things is why we're checking the no. Impact on agriculture. This is a fairly easy one. The proposed project will not adversely affect any agricultural resources or districts, as none are located on or in contiguous proximity to the project site. The nearest ag land is probably over behind the town hall or behind the fire district, but nothing in immediate proximity of that site. Open space and recreation. This one I went into extensive detail because of the discussion about the potential of the rail trail going to their property. I emphasize that at present, that is not under consideration. That any future plans to do that would be a separate discussion. We would need to do an easement over the property with the landowners. And I will say, this is not in that document, but in meeting, we are trying to get the county, meaning the town, is trying to get the county to look at doing it along Granite Road, so we do not go past that one, the neighboring creamery property. So as currently planned, there is no recreation use. There is certainly no open space on that property. So given those, it's not currently used for recreation. It's not planned to be used for recreation, even though they are proposing a bike shop. It doesn't necessarily mean it would be recreational. So based on all that, we made that one a no. The critical environmental area, that's probably the easiest one to do of all. It's not designated a critical environmental area, and we do not have any in the town. And there are none in close proximity. The nearest critical environmental area is probably down in Warsi, Colony Farm. Impact on human health. The project will not create a hazard because there is no generation or disposal of toxic or hazardous substances or fumes because of the project. During the development activities, they will being conducted, petroleum product storage will be governed by the applicable sections of state law. And we quote the sections of state law that deal with all that. We also talk about work during construction for the standards of OSHA for the workers. The applicant is proposing to remove the lead paint on the granary, and it will be performed by a licensed lead paint abatement professional who will coordinate with the building inspector. So based on all those things, you said that there's no impact on that for human health. Consistency with community plans. That one we had a no as well. In comparing this to the zoning code and the comprehensive plan, it's for an adaptive reuse. And we talk about the area being formerly a hamlet hub of activity for decades. We talk about the adaptive reuse of the property itself. We mentioned the county planning board's comment where they say this site was one of, if not the main target for the applicability of this district. They go into much more detail than that. We quote, we talk about the uses, and this is something that we had talked about but never discussed. So I'm just going to say it publicly. I looked at the 7 uses that are being proposed. Restaurant, tavern, or coffee shop in the hamlet is a principal permitted use with site plan approval. The retail bike shop is a principal permitted use with site plan review. I've said approval, excuse me, review. The artist gallery is an allowed use with a special use permit. The co-work space, the only thing I could equate that to was office because we do not have a definition, but office is a principal permitted use with site plan review. The back of house and internal office space is a principal permitted use with site plan review. The inn is a principal permitted use with site plan review. And the 2 units of worker housing are principal permitted uses. We do note that multiple permitted uses on one property require special use permit, but all the uses proposed are allowed in the Hamlet District with either site plan or special use review. So that is in conformity with our community plans. We quote a few sections. Oh, I'm sorry. There's 3. I went back through and boiled down the waivers that are being requested. There are 3 waivers. So they are asking for the 6 parking spaces in the municipal lot. They are asking for a reduction of parking space size from 10 by 20 to 9 by 18. And this other waiver is not really a waiver, but it is. The coal barn and the granary cupolas are 39 feet 7 inches and 40 feet 10 inches. And we have a 35-foot height maximum, but both buildings are pre-existing. So they would be pre-existing non-conforming. They also were designed for agricultural use originally, and agricultural use is exempted from our height restrictions. So I listed it as a waiver because technically it is a waiver from the code, but it is addressed away without us actually granting a waiver because the code automatically allows the waiver for it. If that makes sense.
What was the second one? I'm sorry, I was admitting.
That's okay. The second was the 10 by 20 parking spaces to 9 by 8. So 2 involving parking, 6 spaces, and the 10 by 20 down to 9 by 18. So ultimately, those are the ones we are allowed in our review to award waivers. They do not need waivers for any setbacks that I've been able to determine, any other standards. We find that it's the physically developed is consistent with the EEO statutory criteria. And Mary Lou and I went through some of the criteria in the code that it is consistent with. Compatibility of the mixed use with the character of commercial, residential, and institutional uses. Compatible with increased commercial, residential, and publicly accessible adaptive reuse of abandoned buildings. Enhance the historically designed granary buildings, and will negate the abandonment of obsolete buildings with, to prevent further deterioration.
That was for 18.
This is all for the.
17.
Yeah. Sorry, my numbers are different because I numbered them. This is community plans. This whole section is community plans. We go into it extensively because the whole EEO is sort of based on being consistent with community plans. Sorry, I scrolled back. I lost my spot here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Mary Lou. Since, this has an explanation of waivers and Mike made the statement about how there's no setback, no issues with setbacks. That's once the parcels are combined. And I know we're gonna be,
Right, but if you
yes, so
approve
this-
it, it's gonna be
Okay.
subject
so we don't
to all
need
those
to say
things
that,
happen.
and we don't need to say that here because it's gonna
Right.
be part of the law that.
It'd be part of our requirement.
Okay.
If they don't merge the properties,
They don't get.
this doesn't happen.
Right, yeah. If you approve the EEO, the law says, right, in it that it's effective upon filing with the Secretary of State and with the properties being combined. The law is not effective until.
Got
We go on to sections of the comp plan that we're going to pull out some direct quotes as to sections of the comp plan about, especially dealing with historic designation. There's a whole section of the comp plan.
I'm just gonna say, this is what we're looking for.
And that's pretty much it. So it's a lot to get to know, but essentially there's a lot of basis flags. We wanted to make sure we included everything. So is everybody okay with that? Okay, now we're moving backwards to the no or small impact. So we're backwards to impact on land, which I think is number 1. We checked a no. We checked a yes, but then we checked no or small impact for every category. And just to clarify, we are not really technically or legally required to do these explanations for anything other than a large or moderate or large impact. But Mary Lou has recommended, and the attorney for the applicant has also recommended and requested that we do this, because these are things that if we are faced with a court challenge of this, having it in the part 3 is not only extremely helpful, it will make or break the case because the judge can't read our minds. If we answer, it's a case where more is better than
Right,
less,
doesn't hurt to put
which is
more.
why we're doing all this.
And it makes
if
a
this
good
were-
record.
If this were a very simple application, we probably wouldn't be going to this level. So the impact on land, we mostly are talking about stormwater discharge in this case. That we talk about how they are not required to get a speedies permit because they are under 1 acre of disturbance. Admittedly, it was 0.9 acres of disturbance, but they are not required to. We also, though, talk about, and they did talk in, I'll have to go back and find where the source was, but they did talk about the treatment and attenuation of sediment control. They talked about how the building orientation and parking areas will facilitate drainage to catch basins.
I think that's in part 1. Or in the, yeah.
Okay, and yeah, a lot of this was like pulling a little bit of information here and a little, Mary Lou and I met 2 weeks ago for about, I don't know, almost 3 hours and sort of started a bullet point version of this. And then we've been passing a draft back and forth to each other through email. So we talk about how they will follow the New York State Design Manual for Erosion and Sediment Control. And it will be further mitigated, generated from the site will be mitigated with roof drains and a stormwater drainage system of catch basins, and adequately sized collection. So that's primarily what we dealt with on land, was mostly stormwater, because there are no slopes. There is no bedrock. They're not excavating. So everything else is pretty much a no. The aesthetic resources, which is number
Where do you have that?
9. Yeah, so we have that as a no or small. The architect has designed adaptive reuse. They are not proposing physical exterior changes to the buildings. They're going to enhance the characters of the existing buildings. They're going to use green technologies. And based on the visual information and the testimony at our meeting of the project architect, where he showed us renderings, we got the chance to see the visual impacts of the buildings. There we talk a little bit more about the height, that it does exceed the height restrictions, but it would not require an area variance because it is an agricultural cupola, and also in that it is a non-conforming pre-existing structure. So we talk about, that's really the only aesthetic things we talked about. There's really not much more other than buildings themselves. Historical, we found that's number 10. We said yes, because obviously it's in a National Register district. We recognize that. We talk about how, again, keeping the buildings in the similar exterior state. We do talk about the archaeological sensitive area. This response based on the back and forth between SHPO and Mr. Diamond, who did the study for the applicant. And we basically took information directly out of SHPO's replies back, where they say there were identified potential for archaeological sensitive areas, but that they will use their language where they said there are no concerns. We talked briefly about the historic district of Accord, and do mention that this is on the National Register, but again, that the buildings are being preserved rather than demolished or changed, and very little outward appearance change. So that's how we think it's a no to small impact. Impact on energy, which is number 14. Oh, look at that, 14 in my list there. They will utilize electricity and natural gas during the construction phase for site-related improvements. They'll continue to use customary and normal energy sources. Obviously, they're using more than they are now. There's no electricity there now. But they will follow the New York State Fire Prevention Code and the New York State Building Code and the New York State Energy Conservation Code. We are satisfied that the plans will minimize the carbon footprint of the project to the maximum extent practicable. And they have emphasized that in many times in their statements, that they want to be actually a very great goal to do, to be carbon negative. Was it negative or carbon neutral? I can't remember. Carbon neutral, I think, not negative. But essentially, there is not much to discuss about energy. They will be utilizing some, and they will be doing as green a project as they can. So we've checked yes, but no or small impact.
You skip transportation.
That's because that's a moderate to large.
Oh, I see, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So now we're going to talk about the moderate to large. First one is groundwater. what I did is I grouped all the not applicable, then I did all the no's. It was just easier to do it that way rather than jump around. So impacting groundwater is number 4. We checked moderate to large for the may require new water supply wells or create additional demand for existing water supply wells. So they have provided their analysis of the water usage to the Board of Health. We did receive a copy of the letter back from the Board of Health, where they, in practice, maybe that's the wrong word, but signed off on the current plans. They will have to get a Board of Health approval permit for any new wells. And also for any new septic. And so the sewage disposal system, they presented flow. Mary Lou and I are going to quote sections of the report that they made to the Board of Health in terms of number of is it GPD, I think it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
Gallons per
gallons per
day.
day, yeah. So we will quote sections directly from that. We have a placeholder for that. It isn't inserted yet. They will have to get regulatory approvals for food service, for public water supply, for surface discharge of sanitary waste. They will have to address a collection and conveyance system of waste, septic tanks, grease trap, the absorption field, the sewage reserve area, and they will need to supply well separation distances, and all that it will be before they can construct will require Department of Health approval, which they have tentatively at this moment, but they will have to secure that prior to construction. And then we go a little bit into the estimated gallons used per day. And they did do test wells where they confirmed that they had the capability to do that. And there is one on-site well that's already providing water to the existing houses on the site. So that was essentially our discussion. So we would find that even though it's a moderate to large impact, that through all those measures, we believe, meaning Mary Lou and I, and you guys can tell us if you agree that it can be mitigated.
Yeah, because the project can't happen
Right, without the
without this.
Board of Health approval. And they have standards that are the same for any project anywhere in the state. Impact on transportation. This is the one that is still a little bit of a work in progress. We checked 2 categories as moderate or large. Traffic increase may exceed capacity of the existing road network, and the proposed action may alter the present pattern of movement of people or goods. They did submit the daily traffic generation letter, which was 522 total day trips, based on the IT generation report. They propose channelization, fencing, gate restricted employee parking as we requested, signage. They did include that in their later submittals to us. The reanalysis, which we did confirm today, as the number is identified a reduction of 65 total day trips to a new total of 457 total day trips. And there was a reduction too of the peak hour trips, but I don't remember that number off the top of my head. Was it? I think it was, I don't remember.
That one's like 48 to 40.
I think the new number's 40.
Yeah, I think it was 8. I think it was an 8 reduction from 48 to 40. I think you're right, Cheryl. So we will incorporate that. They are using the 4 existing parking spaces that are located near the towpath road for their employee parking area there by the homes. There are a total of 3 ADA parking spots on the site. 2 were additionally proposed. They added a 3rd near the bike shop. And the wellness component has been deleted, which results in deletion of 2 required parking spots. The co-work space was reduced from 1,881 square feet, or reduced to, 1,881 square feet, which also is the deletion of 2 spots. They added 5 additional parking spots during the course of our review. They added the no parking turnaround spot at the end of the parking area. Deliveries are stated to be during off hours. There's a demarcation of pathways on the plan. From the initial design, total number of parking spaces increased by 4 spaces to a total of 57. And the request of the off-site public parking spaces reduced to 6. They are asking for those 6 shared public parking areas. If we do adopt this, we would then sign an agreement with them, then providing us insurance liability certificate. We would essentially negotiate an agreement to allow them to designate those 6 spots, or not 6 particular spots, but 6 spots for their use. And they would, just like anybody else who uses a town property, would provide an insurance certificate to the board. And it would be an agreement that Mary Lou would draw up for us, and we would do a resolution and vote on. The truck movements and the delivery area has been confirmed to meet the town zoning code standards. We did hear that back from Nadine. Based on the result of all that, we have come out with a no significant impact. Certainly when we hear from Nadine on the reduction of those, we can decide one way or the other. But for the moment, I would continue to say the one that was large, small, or medium to large impact would remain that we would, based on the mitigation measures that have been proposed and the changes to the plan from the original plan, say that it doesn't rise to the level of significance. I know it's hard to say until we get her.
You're talking about transportation.
Yeah, just transportation. Yeah. And then the last one that we had, I'm sorry, 2 more that were significant.
And we'll answer it once I get it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the impacts on noise, odor, or light. Primarily, we were dealing with noise, odor, and light. I don't believe we thought, but they are all categorized together. They have stated in written documents to us that they will comply with the town's 14020 chapter on noise. In that, well, let's start with during construction, there may intermittently be noise, but they are limiting their times of construction, and that's in the Part 1 EAF of the hours of construction. That noise would be like any other construction project. It's temporary and of short duration. Moving into more operational noise, their feeling is that they have addressed it, that they have proposed to follow the 14020 subsection F noise regulations. And then they also provided some mitigating measures, and we never discussed this. I have a big note here, discuss. But these were the mitigating measures that they proposed. The speakers would be set up. for indoor and outdoor dining upon completion of the granary site and project, facing away from neighboring properties. The sound would be tested along the perimeter to determine the location of, so they would test the decibel levels. Levels on the main amplifier will be tested to determine what amount of amplification rises to maintain the 10 decibels above ambient at property line. And they said once the locations are set and the levels are discovered, a sound limiter will be installed on the sound system to limit overall amplification. And they actually gave us a couple examples of what that could be. And they also offered that would be coordinated with the code enforcement officer. And they also offered that amplified music will cease by 11 p.m. on the weekends, Friday through Sunday, and 10 p.m. on weekdays. So before we go on, lighting, they're proposing dark sky compliance. So I think there's no issue with lighting. Odor, there's really no issues. So let's take a second.
With what's out there, a lot of down trees and debris in the road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Stuff
severe
like-
thunderstorm. We're probably in one of the safer places we can be right now. We're in the emergency shelter.
There you go.
I was wondering, it's suddenly everybody's gonna.
Hi, Larry.
Larry, thank you as always.
Thank you.
You're looking very healthy.
It's been pretty quiet here. So one of us, I don't know, walk or he walks there. I think they've got something that's coming, somebody from another tree, but.
You can drive it home.
Cherry
It says-
Town.
it said it was wrecked and they had to be diverted off with the trees down.
Mini tornado pushed through again.
Microburst, Tornado Alley. heard that.
One night I was coming on Lucas and a tree just came down right in front of my
Going
car.
down Lucas in certain areas, you know, you have all the fields and farms and that's great. But then you go on that
So-
part between Cottonkill and Kingston.
On sound, and this is a little bit less about the EAF and more just about the project in general. So those were the mitigation measures that were proposed by the applicant. I think we should probably build on those and expand. I think we should consider either changing those hours to different hours to match the event space that we're proposing in the new upcoming code, which we've already talked about. Something I considered, and certainly in a restaurant under our code, you can have a band inside your restaurant. You can have a wedding inside your restaurant. You don't need a special events permit for that. Outdoors is another story. One thing we could do is, they did not ask for, there was this underwritten event space discussion, but it was not asked for in the petition. It was not specifically named as a use. We could say, if you want to be a commercial event facility, apply to the planning board to be a commercial event facility. You go through that process separately. They can still do indoors all they want, not stopping them at all, but if they want to do things outdoors, they have to go through that review process separately from this. It's just a thought. I'm not saying it's what we're going to do. I just wanted to bounce it out to see what people thought.
As somebody who was on the planning board and put a lot of event facilities in place, especially, in neighborhoods and things like that, again, this is a complex project. The original ask was for outdoor acoustic music, and now it's outdoor amplified music. I think having a level of planning board review also gives more public comment. And I think what we're gonna find is that we might be a little bit too close for it, but let's let the public have their say and the planning board mitigate that.
Agreed, I think.
But except we have to put something in
So,
this document.
so what I would propose that Mary Lou and I would put in the way we address So what Adam just said is acoustic music, let's sort of work from there. Do people feel like if somebody with an acoustic guitar or they have a harp player or something that's not amplified, who knows what they have? You know, they have a little chamber music
Well,
trio.
I don't know, I think I would prefer to think of it definitionally, so like what rises to the level of a special event?
Commercial event.
Or, yeah,
Well,
sorry.
so bear in mind, the commercial event facility code allows uses that already have things like parking space, which this place clearly has. The code enforcement officer can issue that permit, but only send it to the planning board for site plan.
Yeah.
Which means it's an assumed you're gonna get your approval. They're just looking through how it happened.
The other thing too, it would designate the amount of events that they were able to have, in writing, and typically is 12.
But the point I was trying to make is, can we regulate who can play a guitar outside?
Not who, but we can regulate amplified sound versus non-amplified. That we can do. So so the question is, do we want to say no music outside at all? Or do we want to say no amplified music outside? Big difference. And that, we're not regulating whether they can choose what the instrument is and how they do it.
To be a public speaker, it doesn't necessarily have to be music. It
Yeah.
could be somebody giving a speech, but if it's amplified, it would be designated as a fountain.
But, it just popped in my head, the biggest comment we heard time and time again from the public is concerns about noise. I mean, there were a number of comments, but noise was a resounding concern that we heard from many people. And the impacts on neighbors. We don't have to address everything like times of operation in seeker, although it would be helpful if that's going to be how we mitigate. The decision would be where we incorporate those, but if we're going to mitigate measures by using times, that I kind of need to know now. So, so I was sort of starting first with, do we even want to allow it at all?
I'm not.
And then the question is, are we talking only amplified or are we talking all?
I'm talking amplified.
Yeah.
Not in favor of.
Okay.
For stretcher.
So back to the original, so non-amplified, okay. I just want to get it, I want to be sure we're all on the same page.
But we are saying if they were to get their event permit, that then they would be able to do that as long as they got the site plan.
Well, but
I'm
Does that require them coming
I'm
back?
just confused about what.
so
our goals are.
the event permit is separate because I'll use the Stonehouse, for example. The Stonehouse had to come before the planning board because their outdoor site was not on their original site.
Right, yeah.
So this is different in that this site, the Stonehouse can do music out there. They didn't have to go out and get a commercial event facility permit because it was determined they had all the parking. It will be up to the code enforcement. It will be up to them, meaning the applicants, if they want to apply for a commercial event facility. So as a restaurant and inn, they could already do events outside. But what we're doing is we're being cognizant of the area and the location, saying, okay, you can do is, we're not going to regulate the numbers. You can do, 20 or 30 a year of acoustic. Just if you want amplified music, you have to go to the planning board for an additional permit. It's not up to us to decide what the permit is. So we're not going to say, go for your commercial event facility permit. We're just going to restrict the use of the outdoor area, say no amplified music.
But that's not gonna come back to us then.
Yeah, I want to look
It's
because this
automatically
is an
gonna-
amendment, if they're gonna put in another use, that may be an amendment to the EEO, just like
True.
on Lucas Avenue. So
Right.
they may have to come back here.
Well,
Hi,
but
guys, this is Henry, the applicant.
Henry,
Is it appropriate-
I apologize. This is the board's discussion tonight, so
Got it. Okay.
thank you.
So, but this also isn't dissimilar from the Arrowwood project that was complicated. There was a lot of moving parts. They just chose to table that piece to a later date, even if it would have come back to us.
The Arrowwood?
Yeah.
Well, when Arrowwood first came, they didn't know what they wanted. They didn't choose to table it. I told them we're tabling this, or we denied them because they didn't tell us what they wanted to do. Right.
And it
But-
also wasn't an EEO.
True, but this could come back at a future date to look at it. At that point, even if it's part of the EEO, it was still referred to the planning board. Still has to come back.
Will you have? it would
Any
be the
change to the
process.
EEO would have to come back.
Okay, so we might as well not belabor the point then, might as well solve this now. I'm not right this second now, but it'd be, as part of this decision.
So I don't understand. Are we suggesting tying this to the EO determination? And we're saying Stonehouse is allowed to have amplified sound outside because they're a tavern and restaurant, but because this is before us as an EO that we can.
Correct. We can set any conditions we want on an EEO.
Yeah.
If they just went directly to the planning board for a restaurant, then the planning board,
What's that?
Yeah. and the conditions are always based on that specific project in that specific location.
We have neighboring property owners.
We
much
have a
closer
lot
than
of
we
neighboring,
had it.
very close residential concerns that were raised.
I mean, to me, you can have acoustic music that's louder than amplified sound. I mean, they could bring an orchestra and that would be louder than amplified sound. I think we proposed the speakers with decibel limiters, and
Okay.
there are ways to mitigate. I mean,
Well, and
For me
they did
personally.
present all those.
Yeah.
They did present all those. Now, just hear me out. We could accept what they presented as the EAF, and we could still put conditions, because like Adam said, you could have a speaker there with a mic. That's amplified, but is that, clearly that is not as big an impact as, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, I mean, outright saying no amplified sound seems to me like a little
Okay.
draconian from a.
I just wanted us to have this discussion because we've heard from a lot of neighbors' concerns.
Yeah, and I think we can mitigate that through time limits on
Okay.
amplified sound.
Well, I
That's
think
a-
I think it being out, no amplified sound outside where it's allowed inside is a different piece. It's still allowed somewhere on that property if they're having an event. If you're having a wedding or whatnot, it's the music and dancing is indoors, that it limits the effects on the neighbor properties of what's going on, is my opinion. If you're outside, I've worked at tons of restaurants that had outside work outside for many years. It's a different story, and I think that I personally think that we should be doing on.
So if we do the hours, if we match the proposal of what we did for a commercial event facility, which I would have to go back and look, I think we said 8 PM Sunday through Thursday. And I don't remember if we said 10 or 11 Monday or Friday and Saturday. But we did say 8 PM Sunday through Thursday. Is the board comfortable if I just match whatever we did in the commercial event facility to the hours? And, certainly you'll get a pass to say yes or no later, because I'm going to present this to you to vote on.
Is the commercial event facility a allowed use in Hamlet?
It's allowed use in every zoning district with a special.
And the answer is yes. Okay.
So right now, but we were gonna change that.
Oh, yes, not in Hamlet though, taking it out of
R1.
R1 and R2. I take that back. Yes, we took it out of R1, but we didn't take it out of Hamlet.
But the conversation was. I feel like there's a lot of different conversations going on. The first conversation we were having, we had one person who said. We should allow amplified sound outside, but it felt like before that, everyone else was feeling like. We should handle it through a separate process. And Mary Lou was gonna check and see if. Going to get a special. A commercial events. Permit would trigger them having to come back to have the EEO amended. So I think if we got that, I think that'll help us
Yeah.
know the impact of.
Except I would be inclined of saying amplified music, because, if you have a speaker out there with a single microphone, I think that's a big difference from.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So, yeah, I thought the proposal that you were making, Mike, is that if they wanted to have that type of thing, they could do it if they got a commercial events facility permit. But we, in the decision that we're writing, we would not allow amplified music in outdoor spaces without that. But then Mary Lou raised,
The question for the seeker review. You
Right.
said this is a
Mitigation.
potential moderate
Yeah.
to large impact. How
How do we mitigate?
can we mitigate it so that it is not environmentally significant? We had a lot of neighbors who came and said, we have kids, it's school nights, it's, you know.
I mean, they are saying that they will abide by the code. And we kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they will do whatever they have to do to abide by the code. We can't make them held to a higher standard than the code. So the code says 10 dB over AV noise.
but we can't say, yeah, so that was my next question, is could we say that the limiters had to be set like under that?
Well, they said the limiters will be set they will do tests to set the limiters to meet the code.
For the code, but that's the code for, that we have for special,
No,
What's
no,
that?
that's
No, it's-
140-20,
general.
general commercial and standards. So the 10 above dB is the standard for every commercial project in the town of Rochester, not just commercial events.
But-
Commercial events references 140. 140-20 is the general commercial standards.
So if we can't make it more rigorous than the code, can we say no amplified music outside?
I believe we can in that case though, because that's not necessarily making more rigorous than the code, because the use, the ask is for, outdoor music there, it's a very specific use.
Well, should that not be added to their use as a commercial event?
They didn't ask for that. We can't just add it to the use.
And
They
you know.
have
it's
not
a
really
restaurant.
presented, that's the thing, they have not really presented, this outdoor space is gonna be for outdoor seating for dining. The activities that are gonna go on there haven't really been presented, but I think we have to address what can't happen because of the impacts of noise or light.
Yeah,
or
and
any other-
we did have one conversation where we talked about that one of the things that comes along with these uses is hosting events, and that's where the discussion about having amplified outdoor music came up. That's like when this came up.
Well, and it came up too after the
Yes.
first public hearing, when there were a lot of comments, and this, if I remember right, this section that we quoted here was a reply that was sent back from their consultants of, we will do X, Y, and Z. The question is, do we think that's enough? Which is why I read through everything. We could accept that and just, if we want to change the hours to match our commercial events code, we're not saying they're becoming a commercial event facility. We're just saying that we're using those standards and we're matching the standards is all we're saying. We don't have to decide at this moment indoor or outdoor music or outdoor amplified sound. We just have to say, we believe we have mitigated noise to the best level we can. That's all we're really talking about.
So
I brought up the other things just as a later discussion to just put a possibility in your head.
in 140-18.1, under modifications. It seems to say that they would just have to go before the planning board, because it says any further proposed change in use that does not comply with underlying zoning shall be required to go back before the town board. So
Oh.
this is,
Those will comply with,
but, and then it says for number 3, following initial construction and occupancy. So this couldn't happen in the initial site plan review, but any changes other than use changes shall be considered as a request for site plan amendment and be referred to the planning board for amendment, amended site plan review. That's your interpretation.
Yeah, so it's only if you're changing zoning.
Right, and this, they may not be doing a use change because certainly having outdoor entertainment could be a part of a restaurant, just like Stonehouse is. It's a part of their restaurant. Like I said, they didn't have to go for commercial. The only reason they had to come is that whole physical outside for access and bathrooms, and none of that was ever approved. They were allowed to start it during the pandemic. But when the pandemic expired, they had to come back for site plan approval for that. So this wouldn't be adding a new use. This would just be accessory to the restaurant use. But we can impose conditions on the use to mitigate impacts on the neighbors, which could be no amplified music outside or
And
whatever,
Yeah.
or you can only have outdoor amplified at these times.
this section that we said would be moderate to large is the proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation. So we have our local regulation, which is ambient plus 10.
So the answer is no. We
Well,
wouldn't be.
it may, we don't know until.
It may
it
without
happens.
mitigating. You couldn't put measures in to keep it.
You can put measures to mitigate it. But until it's actually tested, we don't know.
Right, but look at, they've said, you know what, I can argue this both ways. That's my
Right.
job.
Argue my way.
But they have said, if we do this mitigation, we will not exceed your local law regulations.
Yep.
Do we feel that's correct? Do we ask Nadine if that's correct?
Well, I think what we do though is, because we know that we're changing the times, or we don't know, but we know we are proposing a change in the times. So I think the fact that this approval should follow what we're planning on introducing as timeframes.
Okay, so I'm talking about this within the amplification or no.
Right, okay. See, what I'm talking about now, because based on what you've said, I would agree, let's let them prove that it's not up to code.
If they can't, then they're
And if
gonna
they're not up
be,
to code, they're cited with a violation. But I would like to agree that the hours that they proposed, we will change to match our commercial events code in the mitigation in the seeker.
Remind me what the hours are?
It was till 8 Sunday.
I think it was
Sunday,
8 and
Thursday,
11. It might have been 8 and 10. I would have to pull it up. I think it was 10 as well, but you're good, like I said, I'm just looking for agreement to put a number in there. You're not voting on that number tonight, you're gonna vote on that number next week. So if I put in a number you don't like, we can change it next week.
it really, I mean, it's gonna be moderate to large
It's still not,
in part two.
the reason
The
we're
question
doing
is,
this is
what are
just
we
to
gonna
get
put in
Mary
the
Lou and I
warrant?
guidance of what to put in the document, so next week we don't spend
Yeah,
8 hours on it.
I would agree to that. I don't think it makes sense to have a
Okay,
complete ban on amplified.
Okay.
I mean, as Eric pointed out, I'm one person.
Yeah.
I think we don't impose that on other restaurants and taverns. We don't impose that on neighbors that want to have a party.
That's not true. That definitely got through the planning board imposes that because they told Harana Market they couldn't have amplified music outside.
Crested Hen,
And
Elm
President
Rock.
wasn't allowed to.
Crested Hen could have it, but it was major mitigations. Elm Rock had a point their speaker.
Crested can't have it outside, they can only have it
Question.
Crest-
In the barn with the doors
But
closed.
bear in mind, Crested, the difference there is Crested Hen is a residential property. They are not a commercial property. So it is a new use, it's an additional use. Whereas this, you could make an argument that this is a commercial business, a restaurant.
So when Elm Rock wanted outdoor music, we had special mitigations for them, along with.
Because they're a bed and breakfast, which is residential,
Still resident.
still residential. Bed and breakfast is not a commercial use. it's residential.
It's a restaurant, yeah.
And I mean, Harana Market's a
But it's
good
not
example.
actually.
Harana Market's a good example.
Events, it's an events.
I disagree with that board on that. So,
Well, but let's not get into, yeah, well,
no, I get it.
let's not get sidetracked with discussing other projects. Let's stay.
No,
focused.
I think amplified sound is like one type of noise. They could be out there with 20 chainsaws, until.
Well, they still have to abide by the 10
So to pull this
Right,
back
that's what I'm
in,
saying. We have mitigation.
to pull this back in to just finish this discussion. So what I'm gonna propose is we use the language that they proposed, and change the hours to match what we're proposing in our commercial events code. And I bring that back to you guys, and then we continue this discussion next week as part of the part 3, and then we can have further discussion.
But I won't be here.
will be here.
Okay. Well, and we can have further discussion. You can certainly, Michael, if you have any comments, please submit them in writing if you have time, because I'm gonna get this to everybody by Tuesday. On Tuesday, not by, on, because I'm away till Monday night.
Maybe I'll dial in.
You can't,
You can, but you can't participate.
but you can't talk, we are,
So,
except to
I
say
could
that
become
you're,
enraged.
you can only talk to say that you're not.
okay,
gonna
guys,
talk.
just so we can, because we got a lot to go yet tonight. Everybody okay with that? That we're gonna say, we keep their mitigation measures, change the hours to match our, and we leave it there, and we say that those mitigation measures will mitigate the issues. And if it doesn't, it's a violation.
Good start, spot.
Okay, it's a start. Okay. Sorry to get in such a long discussion.
No, it's important.
Yeah.
It's probably the biggest one we had to discuss.
Hey, we're showing our hard look, that's for sure.
Okay, consistency with community character.
Oh, this one's swinging.
So this one got checked because of letter C,
Affordable or low.
displace affordable or low-income housing in the area where there's a shortage of housing. I followed up with the owner of the property and got a document which I handed out to you earlier, which is an email chain. There are 3 residential structures there. There's the Sears house, which is the big one when you're looking at it on the right. That's part of the granary complex. That property has not been habitated in close to 15 years by anybody. Now moving to the left, there's the little yellow house and then there's the blue house. The little yellow house does not presently have a certificate of occupancy because it is not in a condition to be occupied. No one was living there when these owners purchased it. They did not displace anybody. In order for it to be habitated, they would have to fix it up, the yellow house. The one in the middle, the blue one, has been referenced as a 4-family because there's, I believe it was 2-bedroom. It was previously being used as an upstairs, downstairs, 2-family. When they bought it, there was a family, I won't say family, there were people living upstairs, downstairs was empty. I'm told by them that they did allow that person to live there for 3 more months rent-free. But it was not affordable housing. It was not being subsidized or funded in any way. It was market rate housing. I only bring this up because I wasn't sure and I wanted to do some research on it. So I'm going by what I'm told, and then this email came at 4:14, sort of wrapped up a little bit of what I found out. But I will be honest, I spoke with Ren this afternoon and I said, please tell me the status of those 3 buildings. So the 2 were unoccupied at all. My question is, and I'm just positing the question out there, are we really displacing affordable or low-income housing or not? I don't know. It has the potential to have it, but the question is, only with major repairs does it have that potential.
What did it, you read it to us, the last meeting, what it says for that.
It says the proposed action may displace affordable or low income housing in an area where there is a shortage of such housing. So.
No,
was it
but didn't you
affordable-
read it from the handbook?
Explanation.
Oh, the explanation, okay.
No, yeah.
Let me pull that up.
So I only bring that up because what I wonder is if this is really a small event, but yeah, yes, it has the potential, but we also can't insist any landlord or owner of property to do affordable housing. Well, I guess we could.
We can if they're doing projects.
But do we get that information if it wasn't affordable housing from the previous owner or from the county or from section 8?
No, but I'll be honest, I don't think the county can disclose. They can't disclose information about section 8 housing.
They can confirm if a property was or wasn't. You're not asking specifics on.
Yeah, and I can certainly follow up on that. But I also remembered that the yellow house was not inhabited. So,
Yeah, I think so one of the structures will remain housing.
well,
but
they're
I think it's the loss of the residential. It's just like, I remember Mary Lou read us the explanation of it and it seemed like it narrowed the scope a little bit,
So
so.
I thought it was loss of, that we based it off the loss of residential housing.
yeah, I wasn't sure because the question here is just about affordable or low income.
Right, yeah, I remember this being clarifying, but I don't.
Well, I remember at the time asking the question, was this affordable or low income housing?
No, and that's,
And the answer was, yes, it is.
well, yeah, that was the answer. It spurred me to ask the
Right.
question. I admit I didn't go to the county, but I asked the question of it. I said, what was the status when you bought it? And they informed me that two of those houses were empty. And both because,
Empty but inhabitable, or?
well, the yellow one does not currently have a C of O.
Right.
The Sears house hasn't been inhabited in 15 years. I don't know if it's been inspected. I kind of doubt it's inhabitable. If it hasn't been inhabited in 15 years, I guess that's an assumption on my part. And they are not the water, but the septic. All three are being tied into the main septic system because the existing septic is problematic. So. I only bring this up because this is one that I didn't have a lot of description of because until we had some feedback, I didn't know how to. It literally is a blank space on my sheet right now.
Okay. Here we go. Displacement of housing could mean that structures are physically removed and replaced with other land uses or housing that is no longer affordable for low-income families. Or displacement can also mean that existing housing is rehabilitated or restored in a manner that gentrifies the area and results in higher rents and land values. Affordable housing is generally defined as housing that affords no more than 30% of the buyer's or renter's income. For example, someone earning $50,000 a year, an affordable house costs no more than $15,000 a year, $1,250 per month. Displacement of these housing units can change the social fabric and demographics of the community that in turn can affect the future growth and development and other changes